Good morning, everyone. Sinead with Free Tours by Foot London. I have just come out of Blackfriars Station. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very close to Blackfriars Bridge and I am meeting one of my colleagues today. I am not taking the reins today. I'm actually going to be filming and engaging. And I wanted to do this tour for ages myself, and I haven't actually done it. This is the World War II tour with Canis, where he's going to go into detail about one of the worst nights of the bombing of the Blitz. This is our World War II tour in London. And that begins right here, just outside Blackfriars Station. And this is where you would meet Canis, right outside Blackfriars Station. I'm interested in what he has to say myself, because I've never actually done this tour. And there he is waiting for me over here. Let's get the show on the road, folks. World War II with Canis and Free Tours by Foot. On today's tour of World War II, we're going to take you to some of the most damaged sites during that fateful night on the 29th of December 1940. We start our tour outside Blackfriars Pub on Victoria Street. We'll head around Blackfriars Lane to Playhouse Yard and then to Ireland Yard. From there, we turn on Bergen Street, then to Carter Lane. From there to Dean's Court, straight across the road to the amazing St. Paul's Cathedral. We'll head around the back of St. Paul's Cathedral and St. Paul's Churchyard and Gardens. From there, straight through Paternoster Square, down Rose Street, then we'll cross the main road to Christchurch Grey Friars. The next part will take us to St. Mary Aldermanbury Garden and on to Aldermanbury, where we complete the tour inside the courtyard of the Guildhall. So ladies and gents, this is Canis, one of our other amazing Free Tours by Foot guides. He is going to take me on a tour of World War II London. Over to you, Canis.
Hello everyone. So this is the city of London that we're in, and on the 29th of December 1940 the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, flew in and they destroyed it. And this tour is a walkthrough through the destruction of the city of London. And if you look over here, you can see that they're doing quite a bit of construction work, and this is a missing street.
A missing street, yeah.
Yeah, so what we have here is this street used to extend out to here. If you look over there, you have three buildings, and these are quite old looking buildings, and these survived the events of the 29th of December 1940. And here is a lovely image of the Blackfriars pub. This image here shows it in its prime, and of course there it is today in its prime right now. By the way, I do recommend coming to this pub. It's decorated in the Art Nouveau style.
It is beautiful in there, yeah.
John Betjeman, poet laureate.
John Betjeman.
He rescued this building in the 1960s. It's going to be demolished. Yeah.
Before it was being demolished?
Yeah, it was going to be demolished. Much like St. Pancras Station was going to be demolished.
Wow.
And he saved it. So there's a shrine in there to John Betjeman, poet laureate. Anyway, the point of the tour is that we are at one end of the bombing raid, and we're going to walk through to the other end, which is the Guildhall. And everything in between that you see that is a modern building was destroyed on the 29th of December. So much was destroyed, so little was left. That's why it's so obvious to tell what survived and what didn't survive.
Very good.
In fact, we go around the corner, we're going to go into Queen Victoria Street, and as you look down the street, on the right-hand side, everything is glass and concrete. So Blackfriars railway station, all the way down the street. Come for a walk.
I'm following you.
So this is Queen Victoria Street right here. Everything on the right hand side is gone. Absolutely everything.
Okay.
And then on the left hand side here, you see this very nice shiny brand new building. This is also a bomb site. So anything that's modern is a bomb site.
Okay.
But do you see the big chunky white building? That is known as the Faraday building, and that was the very first telephone exchange. Telephone numbers were 1, 2, 3. Quick fact, Selfridge department store was number 1.
Oh, on their telephone.
Yep.
Excellent. Right
was
now
an
we're
American.
in Blackfriars Lane, folks, around the back of the Blackfriars pub.
The reason I start the tour here is because when we get to the top of the hill, all the buildings are old. So this is the last bit of the City of London that survives.
Fantastic.
And when we talk about the City of London today, there's a population of 9,000 people living here. On the night, it was 15,000 people.
Oh my God, almost double.
It was almost double, but the area was pretty much just a business district, but it was full of offices and warehouses, but Victorian offices and warehouses.
Fabulous.
Like these.
Okay, so we're focusing solely pretty much on the 29th of December.
Totally. One night.
That was technically the worst night of the Blitz.
100,000 bombs.
100,000 bombs in one night.
Yeah. I'm not exact on the figure, but it's somewhere between 163 and 165 airplanes flew in.
Oh my God almighty, that's insane. Just a quick look at this beautiful courtyard here, folks. Look at these beautiful buildings. It's a City Heritage Award there in 1985. Okay, Playhouse Yard.
So the point of this is it's extremely destructive because they've been practicing for many months. So the Blitz period starts from the 7th of September 1940 and keeps going until the 11th of May 1941. So that's an 8-month period, and 29th of December is slap bang in the middle of it. Coventry has been destroyed. London went through the initial first 57 days of the Blitz was targeting London.
Wow.
And by the time we get to the 29th of December, they know what they're doing.
Okay.
So even though the first day of the Blitz had 1,000 airplanes come into London, 350 bombers and fighter escorts, still what they did on the 29th of December in terms of scale destroyed the City of London. And an American reporter coined the phrase the second Great Fire of London, the first one being 1666, and it's a bigger fire. So one of the things, again, I like to iterate on the tour is when you look at this modern building is the bomb site. So this building was destroyed by the Luftwaffe, but then if you look at this 1930s warehouse, you can see that this building since has been destroyed by hipsters.
By hipsters.
So right here, Sinead, you are in the last bit of London that's still complete. So as a 360, both ends of the street are original and all the buildings in it are original.
All these buildings here.
So everything you see here survived.
Right, let's have a look here.
And it illustrates a point. So if you look at this image, this is taken on the 29th of December. So the biggest issue you're going to have is everything's on fire. That's a street that's on fire, and there's only 2 firefighters.
Wow.
So the scale is overwhelming the fire service.
Okay.
But the big issue they're having is that this is a Victorian building. Now, we're not in Shoe Lane, and the reason I wouldn't bother going to Shoe Lane, it's glass and concrete and granite, there's nothing actually to see. But on the 29th of December, there were 2 firefighters battling with a blaze. Shoe Lane is just off Fleet Street, and Fleet Street is the centre of the newspaper industry. So there are warehouses full of paper and books. And these 2 guys, a guy called Leonard Rossman and William Sanson, are holding onto the hose. Now, this is not them specifically, but I like to use this as an illustration because you need 2 people to hold onto the hose because the water pressure coming out is too much for one person.
Okay.
So in Shoe Lane, they're there for 3 hours, and eventually a fire officer turns up with another guy. The other guy takes over from Rossman, holds onto the back of William Sanson, and Rossman and the fire officer go up the street to get in another hose. When they get to the top, they look back and they see this. Now, this picture is a painting by Leonard Rossman. And
himself?
It's in. This is his. This is Leonard Rossman. Here, let me show you. That's in there.
Oh, wow.
And he was an artist, a very prolific artist during the Blitz. Oh, I mean, he's an artist his entire life. But this image is part of the Imperial War Museum collection.
Okay.
And it's called The Wall. And it depicts exactly this moment. What happened? The wall collapses. William Sanson cleared the wall by jumping forward, but the guy who just took over from Rossman was killed instantly. So the point I'm making, that during the Blitz, your life was determined on how lucky you are or how unlucky you are.
Okay, wrong
so
place,
Rossman
wrong
survived.
time. Yeah.
Pure luck. But the reason why the building collapsed, this is a Victorian brick. They're made by their billions by hand, and there's no thought to fire safety. So you cannot build a building out of these today because they're full of air holes. They are basically Swiss cheese.
See here.
What this means today, the fire service dealing with a fire in one of these buildings, the gas inside the air bubble will expand as the building gets up to 1,000 degrees Celsius.
1,000 degrees Celsius.
So when a building is burning now, the fire service can hear the exploding bricks and know that the building is about to come down. But on the night, they wouldn't have heard that because of the high explosive bombs going off all around them.
Oh my God.
And that's why it was a surprise and caught them out. On the night, 16 firefighters lose their lives.
Wow.
And 5 from collapsing buildings.
5 from collapse of buildings.
Little added note, William Sanson survived the war, so did Rossman, and both of them were artists. And this was the reality of war. You hand a gun to somebody, and if he shoots straight, you send him into the army. If you hand a gun to somebody else, he turns it and looks down the barrel, he's clearly an artist, and you send him off to the fire service. So
clever.
the fire service was full of creative people who were incapable of fighting.
That's so scary.
No.
Was it a shortage of people?
Well, there was a shortage of everything.
Yeah, there's
and
a
there were a
shortage
shortage of fire officers and fire service on the night. But what can you do? You just struggle on.
You had
with
to
it.
fight, yeah. You had to try to do what you could, yeah.
I want to show you what this area looked like. So as you see, everything's modern.
Everything's modern, yeah.
They're all sort of repros to make it look a little bit ye olde.
Yeah.
But this is how the City of London looked afterwards.
Okay, so this is your before. Wow, that's insane.
So you're looking at St. Nicholas Cole's Abbey.
Nicholas Cole's Abbey.
Yeah. And it's fully restored. And the whole point of what's going on here on the 29th of December is they want to destroy all the buildings that have significance to Londoners. Warehousing has no significance to Londoners. It doesn't have any significance to anybody. I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, but if your warehouse is burnt to the ground, nobody's going to care, and neither are you because you have insurance. And that's what was going to happen here. All of these are warehouses that are missing, and they've all got compensation from the government.
Okay.
But that's why they're all being demolished. And that rubble ends up in the East End of London, around places like Stratford and anywhere on the River Lee. But this, St. Nicholas Cole's Abbey, is kept and it'll be restored at a later date.
Okay.
And it's fully restored now.
It is, yeah.
So what is happening here is a psychological attack on the nation. And what the Luftwaffe are going to do is drop a load of these. This is the Incendiary Bomb. It's no bigger, it's not much bigger than the iPad itself. But it's filled with phosphorus. Phosphorus ignites in oxygen. So it has to be kept in oil or in a sealed container away from oxygen. So this is kept in a little bubble, and then the tip has a pin in it, sends air in, and then it immediately combusts like a flare. But this is magnesium, and magnesium will ignite and burn at 1,600 degrees centigrade, approximately. You can get 10, not 10, you can get 1,000 of these into one Heinkel 111
Oh
bomber
my
plane.
God.
So 10 Heinkel 111 bomber planes are taxiing on an airfield in northern France at about 4:30 in the evening. It has just gone dark on the 29th of December. They take to the skies and they had the best pilots and the best navigators flying the airplanes. The purpose of this is that they're going to fly into London and be the pathfinder, and they're going to set a big fire in London. And then once they've set the fire, for the rest of the night, there'll be wave after wave after wave of bombers who are going to add to that fire. But to make sure that they don't miss the target, they're using one of the earliest electronic navigation systems. And it uses 2 transmitters sticking up 60 miles apart on the coast of France. They send a beam which crosses over wherever you want it to cross over. But on this occasion, the town of Mitcham. And Mitcham is exactly south of London. It's on the outskirts of London. One side is farmland and conurbation on the other side of Mitcham today. Back then it was in the middle of nowhere. But what they're doing is listening to a tone which is going beep, 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 beep. And as they're flying towards the triangulation tip, it's speeding up, going beep, 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 beep. When the 2 beams cross over and they hit that point, you get a solid tone. Now they know they're at Mitcham, so all they have to do is turn 10 airplanes north, set their airspeed, set the stopwatches, and fly in. They don't even have to look out the window. It's all done mathematically. And then they drop 10,000 incendiaries. The whole place lights up. But they're here to destroy one building.
Wow.
Sinead,
Yes.
what do you think is the name of that building?
I couldn't possibly hazard a guess, but perhaps it may be the one around the corner, the incredible St. Paul's Cathedral.
Correct.
The symbol of hope for Londoners.
Absolutely. But the big question you're all going to be asking yourself, did it survive?
Interesting.
Let's find out. Don't give it away.
I'm not saying no more.
Come on.
On we go. Okay, Callis.
1666. The Great Fire of London. So this is what the building used to look like. And you can see it's quite clearly very different. The
Very
medieval
different.
cathedral.
Almost Gothic. with
Gothic,
this
yeah. The whole thing. Firestorm.
Spiral.
Well,
Yes.
by the way, we're cheating a little bit. The spire was definitely not on top of the church by the time of the Great Fire
Okay.
of London in 1666.
Okay.
This is it in its prime.
In its prime.
And it definitely wasn't in its prime in 1666. So there was quite a few people that were not sorry to see the back of it. But as a result, it burned to the ground. And it burned to the ground because of a firestorm.
Okay.
So, Christopher Wren given the job of rebuilding the cathedral. But I want to talk about this chap here. So this is Lieutenant Robert Davis. Lieutenant Robert Davis works for a bomb disposal, and this is George Cameron Wiley. On the 12th of September 1940, they get a telephone call asking them to turn up at St. Paul's Cathedral because there has been a little accident. They parked their truck right there and walked up to the front doors. The doors were opened. The dean, standing there, said, "Oh, hello, chaps. I'm terribly sorry to bother you today, but we do have a hole in the roof and this rather large object here." And what he was looking at was an enormous, unexploded bomb.
Wow.
The 12th of September is just a few days after the 7th of September, the beginning of the Blitz. So these guys deactivated the bomb, took it out of the building, down onto their truck, drove out into the countryside, found a farmer's field, and detonated the bomb. It left a 100-foot crater in that field.
140-foot crater.
100 feet.
100 feet crater.
These
Insane.
guys were awarded George Crosses, the highest civilian honour for bravery, as a
Oh.
result of their actions on that day. The farmer was furious.
We shouldn't laugh.
This is a picture of
Ooh,
another
wow.
bomb. This one was only a little baby bomb that came through the roof, detonated over the high altar, reducing it to rubble. And then this is the big daddy, a 550-pound bomb. So powerful, it punctured the hole in the crypt. It actually exploded mid-air. The upward trajectory of that shockwave lifted the dome, moved it several centimetres out of its original alignment. The entire dome. Bang.
Up and down.
Yeah.
Literally lifted.
Lifted the entire dome, and it went like that.
That's insane.
Now, the reason I bring this up is that was the best that the Luftwaffe had. So they couldn't, using an airplane and a bomb, take down this building. It was too big, so the technology just didn't exist.
Okay.
So the plan is for the 29th of December, repeat the Great Fire of London and get the fire to destroy the building.
Ah, I get it.
So,
Am I right in saying that the fire as well from the first round of bombing gave them more visual sights of their targets
absolutely. So,
in the first round of the okay.
So what's happening is
I'm
they're
sorry, that
using-
wasn't very eloquently put, but I'll leave
No,
that
I
to
know
you.
what you mean. They were using electronic navigation just to guide themselves in
Okay.
complete darkness, and then just drop in 10,000. So that's everything from Fleet Street, which is all down there. So all the journalists and the reporters and everybody are down the street in Fleet Street. From there, all the way up here to the other side of the cathedral is all on fire instantly at 6 o'clock when they arrive.
Okay.
And the fires break out all over the place. So the place is already burning at 1,000 degrees within minutes, because these incendiaries are so hot, anything
Oh my
combustible.
God,
and
that's
everything
so
down there is
terrifying.
paper.
Everything down there on Fleet Street, folks, right down there is paper. Yeah.
St. Paul's is the origin of the Bible, the very first mass-produced publication in this country. So all publications were over here
Okay.
in Paternoster Row,
Paternoster Row.
including Collins, who are now known as HarperCollins today.
Are we going to see you around there? Or?
Yeah, we'll have a little wander
Yeah,
around.
we'll have a wander.
But the point is, this is all paper. So this whole area is going to now burn. Let me show you what the issue is. This is the City of London before the air raids. These are all the buildings that existed before the 29th of December.
Okay.
Now, Hitler wants that building gone.
Okay.
This has the most significance to anyone in the country than any other building they can demolish.
Okay.
Not even the demolishing of the Parliament buildings, which they did in May 1941, is going to have the same impact because, let's face it, it's politicians. This has more impact. So this building being destroyed by the morning, people are going to start surrendering. That's the plan. However, this is what he got. Now, do you see the subtle difference?
Oh
The entire
my
city
God.
of London is gone, but the cathedral is still standing. So now you have two trains of thought going on in London. Half the population is going, "Ha you bloody missed," and the other half are going, "The hand of God
Of
came
course.
down and protected the." But now I want to be clear: there were no witnesses to any large hands coming out of the sky. So that's clearly. No.
No Jesus sightings on the night.
Yeah. So this
Oh.
is what happened. This is the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, Walter Matthews. And Walter Matthews had hired 200 City of London architects, and he had trained them to be firefighters. So as a result, his firefighters were structural engineers, and they spent every night of the Blitz up on the roof camping with buckets of sand, so that when an incendiary fell on the lead roof, they would pick it up instantly and shove it into sand, where they would remove the oxygen out of the equation.
Oh.
If you pour water on an incendiary bomb made of phosphorus, the oxygen dissolved in the water will ignite and make it explode. So you do not use water, use sand. So as a result, that's what they were doing every night of the Blitz, running up and down, picking up incendiaries. But on the 29th of December, they discovered they had a problem. Too many incendiaries. So they played football with them instead.
That is unbelievable.
So rather than try to bother picking them up, as they slide down into the gullies, kick them as hard as you can, and they'll flick off down here onto the ground.
Oh my God.
You do no damage down here. And that's a lead roof. And underneath is wood. And the minute you melt through the lead, you get to the wood, it's game over.
That's amazing.
So, the Luftwaffe are coming in to destroy the city
Right.
icon.
Okay.
Churchill is on top of Downing Street, watching from afar, and then he issues to the fire service the order, save St. Paul's at all costs.
Okay.
What that
Okay.
meant is that there were people in the in fire services back offices on the telephone to the warehouses around the area,
Okay.
going, "Hello, love. Have you got anybody on tonight in the security field? Anybody, any night watch or anybody like that?" And if they said no, they went, "Thank you very much," hung up. If they said yes, they said, "Right, just to let you know, when your building burns to the ground, we won't be coming to help you out.
Oh
so
my
if you could just tell them
God.
to go home for the night, thank you very much." The fire service was warning everybody that these buildings were going to be let to burn.
Okay.
Why? Because the fire service surrounded the building. This image was taken on the night by the fire service.
Wow.
So what you have is, those are fire trucks around St. Paul's. The light in that image is the buildings burning. Now here's the point. In the Great Fire of London of 1666, there were no incendiaries and there were no aeroplanes. It only required the buildings next door to be whipped up into a firestorm and take the building out. So, to make sure that that firestorm happened, the Luftwaffe need to stop the fire service from putting out the fire.
Okay.
So they turned the water off.
What?
Yep. Shall we find out how they did that?
Absolutely.
Come this way then.
Here we go.
A depiction of what happened here on the 29th of December.
Okay.
So, the deal is this. The Luftwaffe are spending an enormous amount of money setting fire to the City of London, and they're going to drop over 100,000 bombs in here. They need to make sure that the fire service don't successfully put out the fire. So to do that, you need to turn off the water. So the way they do this, so at 7:30, that second wave is coming in. Now this is 30 bombers, as opposed to the initial 10 that came in just to set the place alight.
Okay.
Any old monkey can fly an airplane when you're flying towards the big orange spot on the horizon. So they're not using electronic navigation. They're literally just going for the big spot on the horizon. They drop their bombs in, but they're using high explosive bombs with a delayed detonation on top of the incendiaries that they're adding.
Oh my God.
The high explosive bombs fall out of the airplane. It's going to take about 35 seconds for them to hit the ground because they're 3 miles in the sky. When they hit the ground, they do not detonate. They have a delay detonation. So when they hit the ground, they bury themselves in the ground, then a timer kicks in, and then they explode. Now, if they fail to explode, these were the most dangerous because these were the ones that people had to climb down into the hole and defuse. But when they do go off, the shockwave now goes through the ground, and anywhere there's a water main, the water main fractures and the water leaks out. This is the highest point in the city of London, so this is where it's going to need the highest water pressure. And of course, it's the first place to lose water pressure. So by 9 o'clock on the 29th of December, the waters in the mains leak out, and that's it. They have no more water.
Oh my God.
So, where is the nearest supply of water?
Right here,
Exactly.
under the Millennium
So
Bridge,
that is the Millennium
the
Bridge.
River Thames.
Of course, we're all
Ideal.
very lovely Millennium Bridge, also known as the Wobbly Bridge, sadly
Potter.
destroyed by Harry Potter. Okay, that's not true.
So the River Thames is obviously
So yeah, so it
plentiful
seems like an
supply
obvious
of
thing,
water.
right? You're going to pump water up from the Thames. So the standard practice is you get a fireboat, and a fireboat is just a big floating pump, and you drive them up, and then you row out to the boat with some hoses, connect them in, and it's a massive pump, and it just starts pumping the water. The Luftwaffe chose the 29th of December 1940 because their air raid would coincide with low tide. So every
What? Oh my
angle
God,
to remove water out of the equation has been thought out in advance. So
that
what-
is serious planning.
correct.
To plan the low tide as well,
Yeah.
and the weather.
Yeah. So
That's incredible.
what does that mean? A fireboat comes up, it's sitting so low in the water, turns on the hose. This is a high-powered pump, so it's going to pump a huge amount of water up through its hull. Of course, it sucks up the bed of the river because it's sitting so low down. And the mud goes through
the
the pumps.
mud and silt to
Exactly.
block the hoses.
Correct. So all of the boats were taken out of action.
Are you
straight
telling me
away.
that this was strategically planned by them?
Yeah.
They knew this would happen?
Yep.
Oh my God, that is
So the next problem is
cruel.
the service interconnects their hoses, and they're going to use the pumps in the trucks to get the water out of the Thames. Fine. The only problem is they have to walk through mud all the way down to where the water level is at this point. So that's difficult in itself. And then the next thing, they just throw the hoses in, which is a natural thing to do, turn on the pumps. But of course, the hose just sinks down onto the bed of the river, and the same thing happens. So the mud just goes straight up the hose and into the pumps, so the fire trucks start getting taken out. So they clean out the fire trucks, and the only way they can get the water out of the Thames is to have crews in the Thames holding the hoses under the water and away from the
my
mud.
God.
Bear this in mind, it's 29th of December, so the water is just above freezing. The water coming out the other end of the hose, as depicted here, they're holding onto a brass coupling and they're not wearing gloves. So, the firefighters
Hypothermia.
complain all night about the
cold.
This is an image of Frank Hurd. Now, Frank Hurd is an auxiliary firefighter. Guess what? Bit of an artist. He writes a diary. And the diary is held by the Imperial War Museum. Now, in his diary, he describes before the Blitz happened, they're all complaining that they're sitting in the fire stations and nothing exciting is happening. All the friends are doing all sorts of exciting things, and he's bored. When it gets to the first day of the Blitz, the 7th of September 1940, they get from Islington, north London, down to the docks. Takes an hour to get there. He describes shrapnel raining out of the sky for the first time. When you have an air raid, the only defence the city has at night especially is anti-aircraft guns. For example, the RAF didn't have a night fighter until 1942, and that's an airplane with radar, so at night they can't see in the dark. So the RAF are out of the equation. So you're sending a shell up to the sky to take out an airplane. It explodes in the hope that it goes off in front of an airplane. Rarely does. But all the shrapnel comes down on top of the firefighters. Hence the reason they've got steel helmets and they're dressed head to toe in leather. Frank Hurd is one of the firefighters on the night, describing this in his diary. And he also describes by the end of that night, the damage was so astronomical, he talks about this sense of guilt for ever having wished for something more exciting to have happened.
Yeah.
And it's really poignant bit in his diary. He's one of the firefighters here on the 29th of December 1940. He's over in Smithfield Market. These are the names of the firefighters who lost their lives in World War II, and sadly...
Oh, you're choking. That night.
That's right. So on the 29th of December 1940, Frank Hurd is one of the firefighters who loses his life. He was 24 years old.
24 years old.
So,
oh my God.
9 o'clock, they're running out of water, they're getting the water out of the Thames. That is the 6 o'clock air raid, the 7:30 air raid, the 9 o'clock air raid. Left are 2 more air raids.
2 more to come.
10:30 and 1 o'clock. But what they discover is that the Luftwaffe are patting themselves on the back on having done such a wonderful job that they decided to cancel the 1 o'clock air raid outright. They decide they don't need it, and they prefer to have the airplanes in Berlin. The weather in Berlin is getting a bit dodgy, so they just fly from France back to Berlin to get ahead of the dodgy weather in Berlin. When the next day everybody woke up to discover that St. Paul's was still standing, Hitler hit the roof when he found out that that 1 o'clock air raid had not flown. But we're now just left with 10:30 air raid. And these guys are going to come in and they're supposed to finish the job.
Finish the job, yeah.
One of the problems and the things that's missing is the firestorm. So a firestorm, first of all, can start by just simply hot air rising up and oxygen-rich cold air coming in. This is happening, and the fire service are talking about a wind picking up, but then the wind actually, a southwesterly, started to blow, and this is the beginning of the end, because if that takes hold, we have a firestorm in our hands and it's over.
Yeah,
so the 10:30 air raid is on its way. It flies in from the south. These are the least experienced pilots of the night. The most experienced flew in first, and it progressively gets less experienced by the end. These are young men in their early 20s.
Oh.
And as is the case in most situations where you have young men in their early 20s, they prematurely ejected their bombs. And these bombs fell on the south side of the river,
That's
hitting
some pun.
London Bridge. What?
That's some pun.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Go ahead. That's okay.
They missed
They missed their their target. Yeah.
they dropped
Thank
the bombs
God.
Too soon. Yeah.
Thank God.
I don't know what you mean.
Anyway,
Anyway,
that's fine.
sorry. Sinead, you know I'm Irish and quite innocent.
Yes, of course you are.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, of
Right.
course you are.
Anyway, London Bridge Railway Station gets destroyed.
Wow.
Totally on fire. Everything on the south side, HMS Belfast, everything on the south side of the river there is destroyed. Now, on the night, this is the biggest destructive fire in the Blitz, and yet the death toll was tiny at 165. Now, you might say, well, that's not tiny. The first day of the Blitz was 650 people, 130 children.
Yeah.
So 165 is quite low. But here's the thing, it wasn't in the city of London. It was that 10:30 air raid that missed its target and ended up bombing south of the river.
Okay.
But no firestorm, because they didn't get any more fuel in here and the firestorm never took hold, which meant
God.
the fire service was now able to take control of what's happening around the cathedral. Forget about the rest of the city. It's burning out of control, but they're actually keeping things under control here. By 12 midnight, radar is picking up nothing in the sky and the air raid sirens are turned off. But the fire crews have to deal with the fires. This is the night itself, right here. So they're desperately trying to keep these buildings under control. The next day is this. This is Monday the 30th of December,
Wow.
1940. Tuesday, the 31st of December, they're still dealing with fires, and the last fire was put out on the 1st of January, which is the Wednesday. The damage economically done to the city is huge. It's the end of Empire, it's the end of a lot, because this is the engine of the economy, and it's now gone. But it doesn't matter, because nobody cares about money in a time of war. What they care about is symbols and their own life. And as a result, that building was standing, and people woke up the next day
and rebuild the
pretty
city.
confident.
Pretty confident.
Pretty
that they
confident
had.
about their situation.
So technically a symbol of hope.
Absolutely.
In the middle of the destruction.
God was on their side. Luck was on their side. Everything was on their side. But of course, what we know is that it was all down to the fire service who protected this building.
Yeah.
And in fact, weirdly, if you look at the front of the building, you will see the phoenix of the ashes.
The phoenix rising.
out of the
Yeah.
ashes. And that, of course, is Christopher Wren's description of the old rising of the ashes. But then it survived. And the phoenix always survives fire.
Rising from the ashes. Wow, that's so symbolic. Incredible. It's amazing how it really did kind of boost people.
The pilots are flying in, realizing that they can see the silhouette of St. Paul's clearly, because there's now no buildings around it, and it's on top of a hill. So the Luftwaffe sort of consciously avoid bombing the area, simply because it's more useful as a waypoint, more useful for them to see where the city centre is, and then always know where they are.
Well, the most entertaining part is how annoyed Adolf Hitler was.
This is Abe Maria Lane. And you might be thinking to yourself, hang on a minute, this is just the path going through the middle of the garden in St. Paul's. No, this is a laneway. And there are buildings missing, and here they are. Before the 29th of December, I would have gone knock knock, and I would now be in a bookshop.
Oh, okay.
So this line is the front doors of the bookshop.
Okay.
I have a picture.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere that was there over 4 million books or something?
5 million
5
books
million
went up in
books.
flames this night. So remember I showed you this overhead picture of everything before. So this is before, and we are there.
Okay.
And that's Abe Maria Lane. This steeple here is that steeple there. Yeah.
Okay.
And the building that you're looking at now is St. Paul's School.
That's the new one, yeah.
That's
yeah.
the new one. So what is it today? Monday? Oh no, it's Easter now, so they're all gone home. Usually we would hear the
choirs singing.
Oh, they're beautiful.
They are
angelic
lovely.
voices
Yeah, they
screaming in the
Stop it.
Anyway, so what we have here is Abe Maria Lane, and this is what we're standing on. Now, the problem is that all of this is gone. And as a consequence, all the bits of these buildings went into the cathedral.
Oh.
So this is the most damaged part of the cathedral. So what you need to be looking out for is the extensive reconstruction work. So all these odd pieces of stone that look like a Mondrian are new pieces gone in to repair the damage done.
Okay.
But also look at the shrapnel marks that they've left for posterity.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So you can see a couple here. There's two nice big lumps missing here.
We'll see, yeah, you'll see them along here, folks. Let me just point them out to you. Oh, yeah, that's pretty intense. Probably one of the more intense, though, is the Church of St. Clement Danes,
Yes.
as you're coming on
And
Fleet
what
Street.
yes. And
You can
what they
refer
did
to
there
our
was
City of London tour for that, folks. It's
They
damage there.
intentionally left St. Clement Danes like that, whereas they've done extensive restoration work here. And
It was
just let
kind of
the
to remind
handful-
themselves they rose from the ashes as well,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Okay.
But you know the interesting thing, Sinead,
Yes.
is that during COVID, they're still repairing this. So I can't remember exactly which panel it is, but I think it's the one around here. But you see the fruit and vegetables?
Yes,
So I think it's this one here.
the vegetables.
No, it's not. Oh, there it is. You see, this one here is really, really shiny.
Oh, yes,
The
of
panel
course,
there.
where the
So
panel
that-
of vegetables.
I was pointing out to people before COVID the damage done to the fruit and vegetables, and
Okay.
now they're all fixed.
They're all fixed, so they were doing that over COVID.
Well, exactly. So this is an ongoing...
It's a work in progress.
Exactly.
Still.
I suppose one of the aspects of this is that you have people who have skills, and you don't want those skills to disappear, so you just keep them plugging along over 80 years.
It's so pretty around here in St. Paul's Gardens, folks.
And from Fleet Street, there's lots of things that journalists are doing. For example, one of the incendiaries breaches the dome from the south. London Bridge, before it burned to the ground, so this was early in the night, rang up St. Paul saying, "Oh, you know you're on fire." And they had to climb through the inside of the dome to try and reach that incendiary.
Okay.
Now, while that was happening, there was a New York-based journalist on Fleet Street sending a telex with the headline "St. Paul's destroyed" back to New York, and they printed it.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Prematurely.
He had jumped the gun a little bit, and as a result, it was a bit awkward, I can imagine.
Well, I mean, that shows a lack of professionalism, because he should have had two newsreels ready to go.
Absolutely.
He should have had one that survived and one at yes.
Well, these things happen. But here's the most important photograph that was taken on the night, was by Herbert Mason. And most people have seen this. Anytime any history comes up about the Blitz, we end up with this amazing image. Iconic.
It's amazing, yeah.
Herbert Mason works for the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail newspaper is on Fleet Street, but he's on the building opposite. And what this means is he gets a clear view of St. Paul's, but his job on the night is fire watch. So he's telling the fire service what's on fire and what's not. However, the smoke is always obscuring his view. So by the time we get to this point in the night, the fires are out of control. There's nothing for him to do. But the wind clears the view. So he starts taking photographs. Now remember, he's using film reel. Yeah. He doesn't know what he's getting until he develops this reel. But the flash that went off behind the cathedral backlights the cathedral beautifully, but he won't know until he develops it that he's got it.
Oh my God.
As naturally enough, this is so awesome, it ends up as front page news in the Daily Mail. Now, for those of you familiar with the Daily Mail, you'll be delighted to know it hasn't changed one bit. War's greatest picture is the headline. The date, 31st of December, so that was Tuesday. Fires are still burning in London, and that is on the front page of the Daily Mail. But it gets weirder, because that is German media using the same photograph, although they've done a bit of Photoshop because they're naughty. And they're saying at the bottom here, the City of London burning, and showing you the burning buildings in the foreground. When you look at the Daily Mail, you can barely see the burning buildings, but they want to emphasize burning buildings.
That's propaganda, though.
Absolutely. But what's even more weird, or something you don't realise in modern day, the date is the 23rd of January. It takes weeks for them to get that image out of the UK and back to Germany so they can use it for themselves. Now the question I ask myself is, why didn't they just email it?
Ridiculous.
I know.
And this is Grey Friar's Passage. Over to you, Canis.
Sinead, this is built in the 1980s. It's a dentist.
That's a dentist?
Yep, and has been the whole time as well.
Very posh dentist.
But you see down there where it says Bank of America?
Yes.
From Bank of America right up to the church. That was the original church that stood here in 1666. In fact, Christchurch Grey Friars was the largest church in London, second only to the cathedral.
Oh, wow.
And it was a massive monastery.
No, I didn't know that.
Franciscan monks.
Hence Grey Friars.
Grey Friars, yeah. So from there, all the way down to the other end of the building was the size of the church. But after the Grey Friar of London, population's already starting to shrink, so they made the church smaller.
Oh, very cool. The Wren Church was destroyed by firebombs in December 1940.
Anybody want to guess what date?
1666, perhaps?
No.
1940, sorry.
Correct.
December 29th, 1940.
Keep up, will you?
Please, I'm so sorry. See?
Do write in the comments if Sinead should keep up.
Wow, I love it here. This beautiful little quaint garden.
Pineapple.
Oh, and the pineapple is making an appearance again, folks. But I just want to give you a good image of this. This quaint little open garden space right in the centre of the City of London. I think you can hear this construction work going on everywhere. This guy up here can be heard louder than me. He'd make a great tour guide. Let's have a look here at the ruins. Look how beautiful this is. Okay. Stunning.
Look at this. That's what it used to look like before the Great Fire of London of 1666.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so big. Extending all the way back to the Bank of America there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Huge.
This is the wall that's missing.
Oh, okay.
So, as you can see, we've got 3 walls and 1 missing. And the reason? Sinead, what do you think the reason for that wall being missing?
I guess it was bombed out on the 29th.
They demolished it to make way for a roundabout.
For a roundabout, wow.
And then that was in the 60s, and then in the 80s they decided they never needed the roundabout in the first place, so they just reinstated the garden.
That's terrible.
But I do have a picture taken on the 30th of December, so this is the day after. So the fire had destroyed this building, and this is 2 firefighters who came over just to wet down the building to make sure that all the embers were taken out, and they would have been standing just here. Just there. So the building burned to the ground. Some say it's about 2 incendiaries came in and set fire to the place. The fire service didn't bother coming here. They were too busy dealing with St. Paul's, so they let it burn. But a postman broke in. Now, that building there, that used to be where the telegraph cables came into London. The Marconi Company did the very first wireless telecommunication from that building. That was destroyed on the 29th of December, and this building today is owned by British Telecom, although they did have it up for sale, so I'm not quite sure if it's still owned by British Telecom. But British Telecom would have been direct descendant of that organisation. Post office, post office, post office. So this was the postal district. So postman broke in and rescued the baptismal font cover, and this is what it looks like. It's actually in Sepulchre Church, the next church down, but a postman broke in. There is a little notice under this in Sepulchre Church saying it was rescued by an unknown postman. I can only imagine why he would have been unknown. I mean, did he turn up with this baptismal font cover, which is a huge chunk of oak about that big?
Oh my God.
And then go, I saved this. And then, like Batman, disappeared into the night. I mean, or was it more that he was walking down the street with this and somebody went, all right, mate, what are you doing with that? Oh, yeah, no, I rescued it. No, who are you? Oh, well, I'm a postman. No, you have it. There you go. I don't know. We can only speculate. But what I can tell you, the dentist built in the 1980s is in that corner, but the tower is a private residence.
That's right. You said this to me. This is actually a private residence.
So I think
Somebody's home.
I think, you don't quote me on that, I think it's about 2006 that they got the lease. 12 floors.
Do they actually
hallway.
own the building, or is it a rental?
No, that would be a lease, yeah.
It's a lease.
So they would
okay.
own the lease.
Which could be 100 years, like the ones
exactly,
in Belgravia.
Exactly,
Yeah,
it could
okay.
be a long-term lease, but it's owned by the Corporation of London. They own the freehold.
God, somebody lives
So this
in
is not
there.
their
That's
garden.
their home. This is not their garden.
No,
this is a public garden.
This is Corporation of London. This is a public garden. They own the rights to live in the tower. And you
How
can see
amazing.
the kitchen is just above the pineapple.
So now it is the beautiful little quaint gardens here. The gardens of Alderne. Remind me.
Aldermanbury.
What is it? Alderman Mary. Alderman Mary.
Well,
yes, that's
if
a
you want to
bit of a mouthful.
Aldermanbury.
Alderman Mary. Very good.
Aldermanbury.
Aldermanbury.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. Right. Anyway.
But it is St. Mary's.
It's St. Mary's. I got that
It's
right.
St. Mary's.
Okay, love.
Christopher Wren, as you know, built 50 parish churches after the Grey Friar of London. 8 of his churches get destroyed on the night of the 29th of December, and this is one of them.
Wow.
Now you might. This is look around you. It's a beautiful garden. Look at the magnolia.
Magnolia are
It
beautiful.
smells
at the moment.
beautiful. This
Yeah.
is the thing. Yeah, there's a beautiful smell. And this church burned to the ground. Once the City of London has lost so many churches, remember there's nobody living here. The population after this event is 5,000 people living in the City of London. There's no need for these churches. 50 churches for 5,000 people, there's no need for it. So a lot of them aren't restored. However, this is what it looked like beforehand. Ta-da!
Oh wow, it's beautiful.
And burns to the ground. However, in the 1960s afterwards, this is what it looks like. I would like to point out that in this image, you can see all the very nice buildings. All of them are gone. None of these buildings exist anymore.
Now, yeah.
I would also like to point out excellent parking.
Excellent parking.
So what
lovely.
happened, Sinead? What happened indeed? Come on, let's go for a walk this way.
We're going for a little walk.
Well, what happened is, you may have heard of the story of London Bridge being sold to a gentleman in Lake Havasu in Arizona.
Robert McCulloch.
And that gentleman, they got the bridge, dismantled it, shipped it down to Cornwall. Big saws cut the facade off the stone. That was packed into boxes, into tiles. He built a massive replica out of concrete, and then they glued the exterior onto that bridge. So this was quite common for Americans to come over and buy stuff. So this is the Corporation of London, and after World War II ends in 1945, Winston Churchill is kicked out of power. Socialists win a landslide victory, mainly because Britain wants housing, jobs and healthcare. And Winston Churchill is now free. So he is invited to America, Westminster University, Fulton, Missouri, in the United States of America, by President Harry Truman. And he is awarded an honorary degree in what is Westminster University, which is today a liberal arts college. While he was there, he delivered a speech. And here is a picture of him delivering this speech. This speech, there's Harry Truman. By the way, if you're wondering why they were in Missouri, of all places, is because Harry Truman used to be the senator for Missouri.
Okay.
So he's delivering a speech in 1946, and he comes up with the phrase, the Iron Curtain.
Ah.
Now, when Winston Churchill passes away in 1965 and 1966, the university turn up at the Corporation of London's offices, these buildings here, and they go up and go, hey, then we're going to build a museum to Winston Churchill, and I hear you sold London Bridge. Have you got anything for sale? And somebody up there looked out the window and saw that church over there and said, well, I suppose you can have that. And they sold it to them. And they shipped it over.
So they bought
to
St.
Missouri.
Mary's?
Yep, all the ruins. And they built
shipped
that.
As a replica?
Oh no, it's not a replica.
That's
that
actually St. Mary's in Missouri.
Correct.
Wow.
So that is the campus of Westminster University, Missouri, Fulton, Missouri. They said they were going to build a museum to Winston Churchill. This is a church, but in the basement is a museum to Winston Churchill with a lovely statue outside the front. But of course, they are Americans, so they were not finished. They went over to Berlin in 1989 and got themselves a piece of the Berlin Wall. So what they have done is they have created a memorial to the Cold War. Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech and the Iron Curtain itself bringing up the rear.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So that would actually warrant a visit to Missouri. That's absolutely remarkable. And it's just testament, as you were saying, to Churchill's ability.
Yes, his gift to the world was very much his ability to write. As he said himself, he wrote all his memoirs live as he lived them, knowing that he was destined for greatness, being a member of the Marlborough family. He famously said, I believe history will look kindly upon me as I intend to write it.
Oh!
But he that was what opened the door for him in politics.
And this is the administrative centre for the seat of the City of London. Okay, Kenneth, over to you.
So, hello.
Oh, we got another picture. Wow.
We get another picture. So, what we've done is we've walked the entire city of London, starting at Blackfriars. Got to
That's
include
amazing.
Fleet Street as well, I suppose. And all the way down to here. This was the destruction on the night of the 29th of December
Oh my
1940.
God, look at it
So
today.
the Guildhall is the
guys.
building behind us, and originally built in 1440. It's had 5 roofs burned down over the period of time. This is the St. Lawrence Jury. This building was also destroyed as well, and this is actually going through restoration where they're cleaning the facade, which has had years of pollution stuck to it, so it's going to look nice and shiny. But basically, yeah, this is the eastern end of the bombing raid. So everything we have walked through the city of London, all those modern buildings you've been looking at, is the destruction that happened here on this night. But I'd like to finish up on something that's really important. Londoners never gave up. And the reason Londoners never gave up is because, well, this...
Yeah.
Some of you may have seen this poster, and in fact this poster was produced in 1939 during what was known as the Phony War, the first year of World War II. Nothing happened in London, it all kicked off in Europe. So this poster was put up all around London, and the Londoners hated it. In fact, it was a failure, because if you're in an argument and you tell the person you're having an argument with to calm down there, it's a bit like putting gasoline onto the already burning fire.
Truth.
So as a result, the government got rid of it, never to be seen again. But in the year 2000, a hipster found one and
Hipster again?
put it on the newly invented internet, and the rest is history. But I want to show you some photographs. This is the iconic milkman
Oh, wow.
delivering milk. As you can see, the destruction in the background. And basically what's been happening here is photography was pretty much quite basic. So no iPhones at the time. So you're walking down the street, you see a milkman delivering milk in this
Totally love
carnage, and then you think to myself, that would be a great photograph if only I had an iPhone.
Ah.
So what you do then is you get your photographer's assistant to dress up as a milkman and you recreate the image. And in fact, that is not a milkman, but the photographer's assistant. But that's just the way photography was in World War II. You had to set them up
Okay.
to recreate images that you would have seen in your day-to-day.
You wouldn't have been prepared for it.
But this
Yeah.
is iconic because everybody drinks tea in the morning and you have to have milk in the tea. And as Churchill said when he saw the rations for tea, we are going to lose the war.
Oh.
They doubled the rations for tea. So these guys are making sure that they get the tea. Buildings were bombed, shops were bombed, and as a result, the owners would come out and put a sign up saying, business as usual. Just to give you an example of how annoying the Luftwaffe were, in the last weeks of the Blitz in May 1941, they flew airplanes down Oxford Street and just bombed the department stores.
Oh my God.
John Lewis was reduced to rubble, about a quarter of the building was left standing, yet the staff turned up the next day and put trestle tables out in front and
For
sold
the
stock
customers.
off
Wow.
the shelves, basically on the streets, yeah. And then finally,
Oh,
life went on.
Look at this.
What's
Lesser.
lovely about this image is this is obviously Daddy is going to walk the bride from the house to the church. The house is bombed. They live around the corner. Remember, nobody has cars at this stage. It isn't until the 1950s that we get cars. And he's decided we're going to go back to the house and walk from
She's
the
getting
house.
married, hell nor high water.
Exactly. And look at the smiles on their face. They know the whole situation is ridiculous, but they're having a great time. And that is why this country never
Survived.
gave up. And as Churchill said, never, 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 never give up. Hit subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Callus. Thank you so much, my lovely. Signing out here at the Guildhall, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed our World War II video. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Callus' tour is on our public schedule, ladies and gents. This is Sinead and Callus signing out here in London. Bye for now.